Your podcast is a powerful tool that serves your audience and your business. But how do you manage it all, bring in new listeners, and convert those listeners into customers? That's what this show is all about. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators. I'm Sarah Whitaker, classroom teacher turned podcast manager, and I'm here to help you get the most out of your show, all while making an impact on other educators. Hello, and welcome back to Podcasting for Educators. Today is a really special episode because on the day that this airs, it is International Podcast Day. Quick, 2-second history lesson. This holiday was first founded in 2014 as National Podcast Day, but then it quickly rebranded to International Podcast Day. And as you can probably guess, this is a day of international celebration of the power of podcasts. And so I couldn't pass up this opportunity to celebrate all of you podcasters out there, and we're even going to hear from some of you in just a few minutes. But first, I just want to share some really interesting stats with you. Buzzsprout, which is a podcast host, recently put out a really awesome article summarizing several of this year's findings from some of the reputable media groups like Edison Research and Triton Digital. These studies conducted really thorough surveys to measure podcast trends, podcast growth, and listener behavior worldwide. And I will link that article in the show notes because if you want to geek out on podcast stats like I like to, then it's definitely worth a look. Now, obviously, I strongly believe in using podcasting as a tool for your business, considering that's what this whole podcast is about. However, I want to take a moment today to share some other reasons why podcasting is so important and why we should be celebrating it. So I want to share some of the stats that I found particularly interesting in this article. So over 1/3 of Americans listen to podcasts regularly. This tells us that podcasting is a medium that is absolutely not going anywhere. It's only going to continue growing. It fits perfectly into the lifestyles of where we are as a society. It's accessible. You can listen no matter how busy you are, and it gives us that instant gratification that we love so much. If we want to learn about something, if we want to be entertained, whatever our purpose for listening is, we can click that play button and we can listen right then and there on the spot. Now, you might already realize this, but a lot of extreme podcast growth happened during COVID. Duh, right? I think we probably all know people in our business circle or just in our personal lives who started a podcast during COVID. But during this growth, something really cool happened and is continuing to happen slowly but surely. And that is that the hosts of podcasts and podcast listeners are beginning to diversify. In 2011, 68% of podcast listeners were white. This is slowly beginning to change. So I want to give you the current breakdown for monthly podcast listeners. Okay, so again, this is listeners of podcasts. 59%. Now, remember, I just said a moment ago that in 2011, the stats were that 68% of listeners were white. Now, the most current for this year is that 59% of listeners are white. 16% are African American. This is up from 12% in 2017. 16% are Hispanic, which is up from 11% in 2017. 3% are Asian, and 6% are labeled as other. And then the other stat I want to focus on is that female listenership has increased over the last few years. So the gap is slowly beginning to close, with women at 46%, men at 53%, and those who identify as non-binary at 1%. Now, while female-hosted podcasts have increased over the years, we are still behind the percentage of male-hosted shows. I've read a lot of different studies with varying numbers because I was trying to get an exact number to share with you of women versus men who host podcasts, but I couldn't find one straight answer. They all kind of varied a little bit slightly, not too much, but they did vary slightly. But all of them had female hosts lagging behind. And the percentage of top rated shows are overwhelmingly hosted by males. And this is something I really want to highlight today because I know that we need more women, and especially women of color, represented in the podcasting industry. Your representation matters so much. Podcast listeners want to connect with their hosts. And if they have a host that is representative of them, then you have the ability as the host to widen the audience bases in podcasting. Which leads me to what I really want you to remember. And that is that if you are hosting a podcast, you should be so proud of yourself. Now, there might be some of you listening who are men, but I think the overwhelming majority of my audience are women. So I'm really speaking to you today. And I want you to know that by being a woman podcaster, you are helping to slowly increase those numbers of those female hosted versus male hosted podcasts. Our voices matter and they have the power to make a huge impact. It is really easy and common to sit behind our mics and have so many moments where we feel like what we're doing doesn't matter and that not enough people are listening. But that is so far from the truth. If you're a podcaster who serves fellow educators, you are not only impacting them as a direct listener, but you're also impacting those who they work with, whether it's their coworkers, their students, parents, or someone else. You are brave for even starting your show. You are incredible for showing up for your people, and you are changing the world. Celebrate that today and always. Try to make celebration a part of your routine, whether that's what feels like a really small win or a bigger win. And I'm not just talking about downloads. I'm talking about any kind of reviews that you get or messages that you get from listeners or emails or shout outs on social media. Whatever it is, celebrate that because those are all little signs of the impact that you're making. Now, about a month ago, I put out a request for you to leave me a voice message that I could include in this episode. I asked you to share about your podcast, tell us what you love most about podcasting, and y'all really delivered. I was so excited to see your messages coming in, and I'm going to play them now after a quick word from the sponsor of today's episode. Do me a favor while you're listening, though. If you hear a podcast that you are interested in, obviously go check it out. But also, if you hear one that you think a friend, a family member, or a coworker would enjoy, please share it with them. Today is all about celebrating our podcast, but also celebrating all the podcasters out there around the world. And the links to all of these shows will be in the show notes at podcastingforeducators.com/episode 64. All right, podcasters, you know how many details come with producing just a single episode, and using the right tools is the key to creating high quality episodes in the most efficient way possible. One of my absolute favorite tools I use is Zencastr. I have tried so many different platforms for recording my guest interviews, and Zencastr is the one I've stuck with for so many reasons. It always gives me the highest quality audio because there is nothing worse than recording an episode that you can't use because of bad quality. It's so easy for you and your guests, even the not so tech savvy ones. All they have to do is click a link and we start recording. Boom, done. Plus, the video is crystal clear so you can repurpose your solo and your guest episodes on social media and on YouTube. Oh, and it gives you a transcript of your episodes. You can go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code EDUCATORS. You'll get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So go to zencastr.com/pricing. That's zencastr.com/pricing and use my code EDUCATORS for 30% off. That's educators, all lowercase letters. The link will also be in the show notes.
Hey, I'm Jocelyn Hubbard, host of the Culture Centered Classroom podcast, a show for educators looking to step fully into their power and maximize the impact they have in their classroom by using culturally relevant teaching practices to spark joy in every learning experience. On the show, I share tips and strategies for ways that you can effectively but simply use culturally relevant teaching to affirm, welcome, and celebrate all of your students through instruction. My goal is to help you discover new ways to think about your lesson plans and choose resources to support the learning in your classroom so that every student knows that they are truly welcome and that the classroom is really a space where they can be nourished. The thing I love most about podcasting is that it is a great way to teach, to learn, and to share information. It's a great space to gather inspiration and then go forward with the rest of your day.
Hi, my name is Rachel from Chock-full of Life, and I am the host of the Chock-full of Life podcast. And on my podcast, I give teachers tools and strategies to overcome and hopefully avoid burnout. I use my mistakes that I have made over my 20 years in education to teach teachers how to set boundaries and how to live a life that they love both in and out of the classroom. One thing I love most about podcasting is that you can access it anywhere. So the accessibility and the freedom to just put your earbuds in and listen while you're going for a walk, while you're grocery shopping, while you're making dinner or in your car. It's just such an easy way and an easy tool to spread the message and to help educators, no matter what the topic is.
Sam Holcomb here with the Simple Systems with Sam podcast, where I take my engineering background to lift the veil on how corporations can save millions of dollars in so much lost time. They're efficiency and productivity machines, and you can be too. Each week, we're going to cover one simple step on how you can streamline your classroom, home, and personal life and create a system that works just for you. I love having a podcast because I devour podcasts myself. Listening on the go is a great, easy way to make sure that we are having a little bit of me time while we're also accomplishing the rest of the day. In fact, we'll talk about habit stacking on an upcoming episode. Love to see you there.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I have a podcast named Spanish with Sandy. This podcast has small micro episodes of how to pronounce really useful phrases for parents to promote use of bilingualism in the home. So if there's a family with one parent that speaks Spanish and another that does not, like my own family, these episodes help bring those phrases into the homes. And the whole use is for it to be easy and approachable for those non-Spanish speaking parents. What I also love about podcasting is that I can make mistakes and not, again, have to look a certain way to, produce these programs. What I also love about it is that it gives easy access to parents who maybe are shy about maybe taking a class, don't have the commitment to take a class. These phrases are useful and could be put to use right away, right after they finish a podcast. And there's practice room. So yeah, I hope I get to be featured. And thank you so much for all the work that you do. I really appreciate it, especially for a person who is not very tech savvy. You are making it really easy for us. So thank you so much.
My name is Rebecca Joyner, and I'm the science teacher turned curriculum writer behind It's Not Rocket Science. My podcast, Secondary Science Simplified, serves secondary science teachers with practical strategies to love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. I love how podcasting gives me an opportunity to build relationships with my audience. I find it so much easier to get my tone across orally than I can when writing a blog post or sending out an email. It also is just such a privilege to walk alongside teachers and be a voice in their ear as they drive to school, grade papers, or cook dinner. I'm so humbled to be a part of their lives in this way, and I'm truly so grateful for the connections that podcasting has forged between me and my audience.
Hey there, I'm Kristen from KristenDoyle.co and the TPT store, Chalk and Apples. My podcast, The Savvy Teacher Seller, is for TPT sellers who want to grow their business. Because I know how busy you are, each episode gets right to the point with no fluff, actionable steps in around 10 minutes. On the show, I cover all the different aspects of running a TPT store, from product listings to SEO to your website. Before podcasting, I was really struggling to put out weekly content because, to be honest, I just don't enjoy writing blog posts. Starting the Savvy Teacher Seller podcast has been a game changer for me because now I actually look forward to recording content every single week. And I have tons of content to pull from for social media. I've really found my thing with podcasting, and I only wish I had done it sooner.
Hey, Podcasting for Educators listeners. My name is Kelsey, and I am the podcaster behind Wife, Teacher, Mommy, the podcast. And I am one of Sarah's clients. I just love working with her. She is incredible. I would highly recommend, if you are a podcaster, definitely checking out her course, or if she has room for management, she's incredible. But I just want to celebrate one that I launched my podcast this year. Honestly, until the end of 2021, I loved listening to podcasts, but I never thought that I would actually be a podcaster. I kind of had like some, I can't even think of the word, like imposter syndrome around it. Like, I'm not a podcaster. But now I'm doing it and I absolutely love it. I think it's so much fun. I've even gone to 2 episodes a week temporarily. And it's just been a really great time. I love that it helps me connect more with my listeners. I love that it helps me connect with other podcasters. Like, I get to go on their show. They come on my show. It's so much fun. And I just think it's a great opportunity for everybody to find another source of content for their business. Because as you know, like, I've used like Facebook ads a lot and stuff, but I feel like a podcast is a great long-term thing to do for your business. So I am just super grateful for it and celebrating that I'm here. I've done over 25 episodes and it's, I just love it.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and my podcast is called High School Counseling Conversations, and I serve high school counselors. I love podcasting because it gives me a unique way to connect with my listeners and my followers, something that is totally different than blogging was able to do. In both blogging and podcasting, I can get SEO all over Google, but podcasting gives me the opportunity to grow that know, like, and trust factor with people who are listening week after week. And so I love connecting with my listeners through DMs and messages and emails and hearing how the podcast is inspiring them and energizing them and changing them.
Hello. Happy International Podcasting Day. I'm Johanna Kuiper, the host of Solving for the Undefined podcast, a podcast for math teachers by a math teacher. I started my show on a whim back in 2021 and quickly kind of fell in love with everything podcasting is. It suited my creative needs well as a verbal processor. And one thing in particular that I enjoy about podcasting is trying to make it feel more like a conversation than listening to a rehearsed speech. And I want each episode to feel like you're having a conversation with your math teacher friends, talking through struggles that math teachers face, from working with students below grade level, engaging students who are maybe apathetic towards learning, and overall pushing back against the stigma that, quote unquote, only math people can do and love math. Overall, my goal is to help middle school math teachers engage students academically using research-based strategies so students can deeply understand and love math. If that is something you are down to be a part of, please come hang out with me by listening to my weekly episodes of Solving for the Undefined podcast. And with that, I'll calculator.
Hello, my name is Brittany Blackwell, and I am the host of the Resilient Teacher podcast, the show that's giving overwhelmed educators the support, the tools, and mindset to reduce teacher burnout and keep teaching sustainable. Each week, I share inspiration and actionable steps to avoid or recover from the dreaded teacher burnout. I help inspire educators to individualize self-care and learn to prioritize their well-being and mental health, all while making a bigger impact in their classrooms and communities. There are literally so many things that I love about podcasting, from meeting and collaborating with other amazing educators to organizing my marketing strategies. Podcasting has definitely kept me more focused. I'm able to create long form content in less time, allowing me to connect with the teachers that I want to support and having ways to repurpose my long form content in smaller chunks throughout my social media, which allows me to be more visible in meeting the needs of my audience.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Vasquez, the host of the podcast Stepping into Special Education. My podcast is for new special ed teachers to find strategies for a quick classroom setup, a plan to teach small groups, and tips with how to coordinate the support staff. What I love about podcasting is I get to host a show and speak about topics I'm passionate about. So if you're ready to finally know where to begin and lessen that overwhelm, give my podcast a listen. All right. Take care, you guys.
Hi, I'm Ashley, and my podcast is called the Reading Project Podcast. So with my experience as an online tutor, classroom teacher, and the mother of a reluctant reader, I like to bring fun and an effective approach to building stronger and more confident readers. So this podcast is for families and caregivers and educators that want to include a culture of literacy in their lives, and they want to raise strong and confident readers. I created the Reading Project podcast after working with dozens of families in my private tutoring business that just needed more support in their homes, helping their kids with readers. And my favorite thing about podcasting, I have two things. First, I love connecting with other educators that are just doing amazing things in the field of education with literacy. And I love collaborating with them and, getting their story and their voice out into the world in a bigger way. And I also love supporting families in this way and helping them to see that they don't have to be a teacher in order to support their kids with reading at home. So if you have a struggling reader, or you're just excited about, building a culture of literacy and raising confident and strong, excited readers, then I hope you'll take a minute to check out the Reading Project podcast. Thanks.
Hey, y'all. This is Raj over at the Lone Star Tutor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gaps between educators and parents alike. Over at the Lone Star Tutor Podcast, our mission is to eradicate literacy and numeracy gaps with children in grades K through 4. Also, our intention is to make learning fun, practical, and honestly just makes sense. So if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a tutor, or honestly anyone that works with children in grades K through 4, hop on over to the Lone Star Tutor Podcast and let's have fun and let's see how we can become a collective so that we can benefit the children who need it the most. Thank you.
Hi, this is Melissa from the Melissa and Lori Love Literacy Podcast. On our podcast, we interview guests weekly, including experts in the literacy field and educators, including our favorite teachers, and leaders at the state, district, and school level, and parents and community members. Our whole goal on our podcast is to learn along with our listeners. Specifically, we talk about the importance of high-quality curriculum, and we love hearing about experiences with curriculum. And then second, the science of reading, so learning about how students learn how to read and what the research actually says about how that happens. The thing I love most about podcasting is that it gives educators access to professional learning. One, that it's free, and two, that it's convenient, that they can literally listen while they are taking a walk around the block or driving to work. They can do this while they have time. And I love being able to just have authentic conversations with these experts in the field and really being able to share that with others around the world.
Hi, it's Kristen Masick, the host of the On Your Prep podcast, a podcast that has been created to specifically support multi-prep career and technical education teachers. And my favorite part of podcasting is to be able to deliver very short PD and lessons on topics that are relevant in the moment to support those teachers who need it the most.
All right. How awesome was that to hear from all of those incredible podcast hosts? If one of them was you, thank you so much for taking the time to share your show with us today. I want to leave you with one more interesting stat from that article that I referred to back at the beginning of this episode. And that is the projections on podcast growth in the coming years. Now, back in 2017, there were 46.1 million podcast listeners in the US alone. In 2021, that number rose to 82.7 million. And predictions are that that number will reach beyond 100 million by 2024. Over 100 million regular podcast listeners in the United States. So if you are listening to this and you listen in regularly and you just haven't yet taken that leap to start your show, now is the time. Consider this your sign to go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, you can download my free podcast launch guide at podcastingforeducators.com/launch guide, and that will walk you through the basics of getting your podcast set up. If you want a lot more details and step-by-step direction with ongoing support and a place where you can always come with your questions along the way, then you can join us in the Podcasting for Educators Prep School at podcastingforeducators.com/prep school. Now, before you go, how can you join in on this celebration of International Podcast Day? There's a lot of ways that you can do that. Number one, if you want to help to support this podcast, I would love for you to screenshot this episode, add it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at Podcasting for Educators and use the hashtag International Podcast Day. The other way that you can support this show is by writing me a review on Apple Podcasts. Just like on Amazon, people like to go and check out the reviews before tuning in. So this really helps me to reach more people and to let people know that this is a good show to listen to. Lastly, I want you to think about 3 podcasts that you listen to regularly. You can show them your support by also writing them a positive review and giving them a shout out on social media. I hope that you'll join me in celebrating International Podcast Day, and thank you for all you do to get your messages out into the world. I'll catch you here next week. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. To keep this conversation going, connect with me on Instagram at Podcasting for Educators. I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about podcasting. If you're looking for support in launching, managing, or growing your podcast, check out my online course, the Podcasting for Educators Prep School, at podcastingforeducators.com/prep school. I'll see you here next time.